want to begin by just discussing internal energy, right? Because before we can get into whether we're going to be training Tai Chi Chuan, Xingyi Chuan, Bagua Zhang, or whatever the internal martial art is, or we have to understand what internal energy is and how we can actually access it. So when we talk about what is it, the hard answer is nothing, because you'll never feel it, right? As the person who is, training an internal martial art and trying to access internal energy to issue, to neutralize it, to yield it, you never will feel it itself. And one of the things where we get caught up when we are trying to train our internal martial arts is we try to feel something. And oftentimes in trying to feel something, we experience tension, and we start working with tension forces. And we begin trying to issue tension forces and yield tension forces or neutralize tension forces. And when this happens, what we can observe is the body starts departing from some of the very real requirements that these internal martial arts ask us to adhere to. We don't want to work with tension. We want to work with nothingness. And so a lot of this comes back to accessing what the material says, right? When we talk about, well, why do I train it? We're trying to train it so we can change the quality of our body, right? When we look at the classics, one of the things that's often repeated is that the spirit leads the intention leads chi, chi leads internal energy, and internal energy leads the body, right? But before we can be led by something that feels like nothing, that has nothingness to it, right? We need to access the quality of the body so we can be led by it, meaning we almost can't do anything, right? Which is kind of hard to make sense of, because an internal martial art is doing quite a bit, right? You're doing cloud hands, you're doing 5-element fists, you're doing 8 palm changes. But when we talk about doing nothing, we're talking about the quality, meaning no tension, right? You can't have tension forces, stressor forces, as you're trying to access what is called internal power or internal energy. So one of the things that's been given to us is breath work, right? See, it's not that the breath is magic and we suddenly, by breathing for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, have internal energy. But what the breathing does is give us the quality of the body, right? Which is why so much emphasis is placed on relax, breathe, relax, right? Breathe, relax. And then more importantly, it gives us an idea of how the body actually responds to that quality. Oftentimes when we take an inhale, we find the body kind of getting big, filling up, right? And then when we exhale, we feel it deflating and kind of going down, right? And these are a lot of principles that we find in our internal martial arts and a lot of the postures. So to begin there is to say we need to have a practice that goes alongside of our internal martial art that first gets us in the correct quality. And the correct quality means the absence of tension. And once we're in the absence of tension, right, we can then now allow the body to be led by this power that we can't feel, right? And that power that we can't feel is being led by something called the chi, which we also can't feel, right? And then that itself is being led by the intention, which is something we can't feel, but we actually have control over, which is the interesting part. So in between the body are these two things that are leading the body, but it's our own intention that leads those things, right? And then finally, the spirit of the intention, right? I often say internal martial arts, in order to pull off a lot of those techniques, especially combatively, you have to have a spirit of violence. But think about it, it's a hard ask. Without tension, right? Without the the kind of quality of the body, you still have to be able to access it. And that's where the term Neigong comes in now, because that's a gongfu, that's a skill. It's not something we could just say, hey, I'm going to do it. You'd have to train it and train it and train it, meaning have experience with quality, have experience directing both energy and energy being directed by chi, so that the spirit, something you can't feel and actually you don't have much control over, right? Because it's gonna rise up according to whatever is going on. And if it's combat, probably the person in front of you, right? So what we want to do is take that place and then look at practices. Before we do that, let's look at what it looks like as a demonstration. So while our body is being led by these things we mentioned, one of the things that is a good example of the quality is correct is the shape shouldn't matter, right? When we're doing the internal martial arts, we put up a shape, you come and exert a force, right? And it's because this shape is married to the condition of quality. But then if I'm totally relying on that shape and you go to exert, but let's say you move somewhere, you change, right? And now the shape is weak because I don't know how to free myself from shapes. And it's a precursor to everything we're doing. We have to have shapes, but when we're working with energy itself, it shouldn't really matter. So when you come to exert your force, right? And you can change, be free, right? Do it however you like, right? My intention remains the same, right? I just keep thinking, I want you over there, right? I put my intention in that place, right? If I think I want you over in this place, I don't come and I don't try to force it, right? Even if it's highly technical, I don't try to force it, right? I just put the intention there, right? Hey, it's nice to meet you, John, right? Right. All this is now going, I have to allow myself to be led by those forces.
Does the energy change as a result of the quality becoming more relaxed?
Yes. So the quality has to reach a place where it must remain, right? It has to be in its perfect state. When you begin exiting that state, the energy will change. And what happens is really it's an interesting dynamic. You go from working with an energy that you can't feel, that's called internal energy, Jin in Chinese, to something you can feel, which will end up being tension. So you will experience that. You'll go, oh, my quality has changed because I'm tense now and I'm unable to, right? A lot of people, in regard to what you just asked, often try to put degrees on internal energy, whether it's a hard internal energy or a soft internal energy. And then they come into understand that by a hard quality of the body versus a soft quality of the body. But that's not the case, right? It won't change. Let's say I'm rigid in my shape, but I'm not with tension, right? So that's a rigid shape, right? And I put my intention over there. How did my arm feel when you touched it? Same, right? Now, if it's off, right? It doesn't, the quality of whether or not my body is hard and rigid or soft won't determine the quality of the energy itself. But if I rely on tension, then that will be where you'll find the energy will change.